to Ace Dog Sports. This is Pay What You Can Learning. And I like to put this note up just in case anybody can't hear me to remind you that I am recording this and it is going to live on my YouTube site. So I hope that doesn't make you turn your cameras off. Please don't turn your cameras off, but if you want to, you can. I am Sandy Rogers, and you can reach me at sandy@acedogsports.com. We have a PayPal link on our website, and there's one that came on the notice, but some people like to write checks, which I accept. So you can get my address from me via the email. So thank you so much for coming. I had a feeling this was going to be a hot topic. And I'm excited to get into some conversations with you guys about why dogs would rather not work with their people. And, you know, when is it about training? When is it about relationship? And when I'm working with somebody that has a dog that will check out, I work very intensely with them about the reasons why, but a lot of times the answers are very, very, very similar. So sometimes we don't get the reasons why, but the main place it has to start is if the dog is stable. So there is a lot of information about what to do for this problem and what to do with that problem. And I have been in the trenches of dogs for many, many years. I have been a professional dog trainer since '89. But before that, I had an animal shipping business. So I got the privilege of handling lots of terrified animals who didn't know me. And before that, I was an only child raised on a farm. So I don't have a gift. I don't have a great talent. I've just learned a lot from being on animals one-on-one. And being able to encourage a dog and setting a boundary for a dog is complicated. And you have to take a look at what goes on with you when things aren't going smoothly. So the first thing that I want to do, so you guys, what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to plant seeds and raise questions. And if nothing else, you should leave here tonight knowing whether or not you need more help with your problem or not, or if you can solve it on your own, if nothing else. And hopefully you're going to have some things that will give you some direction to go in. And I am reachable. So I'm going to talk for a little bit and then I'm going to turn it over to questions. But before we start, I listed some things in the notice that went out and I want to identify them. So Zoomies is a common thing when a dog gets left off leash and it just starts running happily in circles and going crazy. It may have something in its mouth. A lot of dogs will do a Zoomie when they have stolen an item. Dogs who have owners that chase them when they steal perfect Zoomies to a high art form. So that's Zoomies. Dead people is when you have a dog that seems to be okay and suddenly stops like it has seen a ghost. The recovery on that dog, when you get that reaction, determines whether or not that dog is stable or not. No super happy-go-lucky, stable dog sees dead people. Now, I'm not talking about a noise startle. I'm talking about the dog. I have a strong suspicion that it's often smell. We talk a lot about noise sensitivity, and we can tell when our dogs are afraid of something that they see flapping. But I have worked with dogs that have sensitivities to odors. And I have friends that work in the service dog industry that have dropped dogs for sensitivities to odor. So that falls on, so the dogs that seem to freak out over nothing are absolutely freaking out over something. And those dogs could be unstable. And I think that when we're talking about dog training, if we're not considering this, if the dog is stable or not. So you guys, I'm just going to give you a mental image of a happy-go-lucky, kind of on the doofy size Labrador. Do you see that dog? It's like, da, 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 that was a gun. Oh, you know, I love you. Oh, and a dog is snarling at him. It's like, I love you too. They, you know, they're just happy-go-lucky and nothing seems to ruffle their feathers. So when I'm talking about a stable, happy-go-lucky dog, they come in every single breed. Some breeds have more than others. And when I'm talking about training, I'm addressing the happy-go-lucky, stable dog. That doesn't mean we're not going to talk about dogs that aren't stable. Pat, are you trying to get my attention? She was waving frantically. Okay. Pat, are you trying to get my attention?
No, just saying hi.
Okay. Hi. Over arousal was on the table too. And over arousal, I hope that we all know what that means. It gets thrown around a lot. In my mind's eye, it is a dog that is overreacting to something and the owner can no longer influence the dog. I mean, the dog may be over aroused and the owner can still influence, so it's not part of the definition, but it's usually what people are unhappy about. Solicitous is that dog that just, I have that dog right now, just cannot seem to control itself out of pure joy when it sees, in my case, it's any living other thing. A lot of dogs, it's just when they see their favorite person or their favorite dog buddy, but some dogs, it's like half of the dog population, half of the people population. And then other dogs like mine, it's if it's drawing breath, he is going to die if he can't get to it. So that is what I call over solicitous. You could have worse problems. And so those are the dogs that just can't help but stay high. Does anybody have, and actually before we start, you guys, I'm gonna have you go into the chat and quickly say yes or no if you compete in agility. And if you want to just add to it new or experienced, that would be great. So I've got a no, not yet. And you could put, so Cindy, you have competed quite a bit, but not with the dog that you have. Not yet. Yes. I just want to get us all a sense. Nancy says she has. Not. Yep. Okay. And I know that we have at least one person that's training their, so Alex, type in here for me. I know it's your first dog. Are you planning to do agility? Competed in the past with different dogs. Julie, yes. Yes, we started before COVID. Lucky you. Is there anybody here, and you can just type in the word me if you're not doing agility or not wanting to do agility? Pat says she does too much agility. I'll second that motion. Carrie, yes, experienced. Okay. That's helpful to me. Everybody's interested in agility. And some of you are here because of the dog you have, even though you've competed in the past. Okay, is there anybody that has the dog? And if you want to type it in the chat, and if you're shy, I'm learning how to look at the chat. that has a dog that I didn't mention. Zoomies isn't an issue. Oh, sniffing. Oh, forget. You don't have to type in sniffing. So you guys, there's two kinds of sniffing. I put in the description, fast and slow. So one dog puts his nose down and says, "Can they still see me? Am I invisible? Have I disappeared? Has anybody noticed?"
That's the
And the other dog goes sniffing wildly, like, "I can't control myself. I'm so excited. I smell, I smell, I see, I am, I smell, I see, I am, I smell." So it's an excited sniffing versus, oh my God, I wish I could be invisible. So we've got the two sniffers, the happy, excited sniffer, the deadhead sniffer. We've got the over solicitous dog. I love pull setters and scribes way more, judges, than I do my handler. We've got the dog that's over aroused. That can sometimes be ugly. And then we have the dog that spooks easily, sees dead people, and then the Zoomies dog. So I've got ring stress, shuts down a bit, slow at the start line, watches people from the ring, doesn't run full speed. Okay, and that's pretty classic. We can just start right there. Does anybody have a dog that I haven't mentioned? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, you guys can type in the chat. I've had feedback that sometimes people don't type in the chat because because I've gone on to the next thing, but it's okay. Go ahead and put your questions in the chat, because I'll know if I've got more people wanting to go back to a subject, because I'm going to talk a little bit general about each one of these things now that we've identified them. And then I'll go back to talk about the dog that's ring stressed and ask a couple of questions. When you are getting advice from people about these dogs with particular issues, KRN26, I think you're not muted. That's Karen. If I can get you to mute, that would be great. Where was I? Sorry, I've got a couple of, oh, sniff then marks. Oh, I hate that when that happens. So when you ask your buddies what to do about your dog's problem, they may know, you may be asking them because they had the problem too. If they don't have the same breed with the same learning history and the same temperament that you have, their advice might not work. If they're not a professional dog trainer, their advice not be the best advice. And I just want to throw this out here. When I am at ringside at a trial, I hear really bad advice being given out. And I've noticed that a lot of the people that love to give advice the most are sometimes the ones offering the not so great advice. So what I want you to know is that when you ask someone for their advice, especially about behavior or temperament, if they don't ask you about 6 questions at least, you probably shouldn't take their advice. So if you tell me a problem specifically about your dog, I am going to need to know at least 6 things before I even start. And then probably the first 3 things you tell me is going to have me ask you 4 or 5 more questions. Okay, because the first thing we have to understand is the dog stable? Is the behavior within the breed characteristic? And how long has the behavior been around? And what have you done in the past? How has what you've tried in the past affected the dog? How long did you stick with the thing in the past that you tried that worked or didn't? Maybe you gave up too quick. Maybe your dog drew a different conclusion. So it's important when you're seeking advice about behavioral issues that you're talking to someone who has experience with your breed and experience with your breed with that issue. Okay? Because and there's differences within the breed. We can get into that a little bit for sure, for sure. So I'm going to keep the chat going and then I'll come back to it. The Zoomies. The first thing that I ask a client when they suffer from the Zoomies is how much time does your dog spend off leash, not in your backyard? And I have not met a person yet that has a dog that they can't control when the dog gets the Zoomies that spends daily time off leash with that dog. So what it means is the dog has learned the pure joy of freedom off leash when it gets off leash. So that can easily boil down to a recall. And you guys, so many problems. Lack of control is lack of control. What happens is we get a behavioral issue that turns into a trained response by practicing. The dog is practicing the unwanted behavior. So there's two commands that lots of people don't perfect, and that is a recall and a leave it. And the recall and the leave it, if they are trained to a level that the dog loves. So the dog isn't going, oh crap, when they hear those commands. Ugh. They're going, oh, leave it, I'm going to get something better. Come, I'm going to get something better. So that's a lot of energy. That's a lot of time and energy depending on the breed and the learning history, right? So if you've got an 8-week-old puppy, you're not having this problem because your puppy's following mama everywhere. If you've got a 9-year-old Jack Russell, I've got a spare bedroom. So the point is the factors. If your dog has Zoomies to the level that's an issue, you don't have off-leash control. And your dog is not off-leash enough for being off-leash not to be a novelty. So to me, that is an exercise owner issue. And I'm not saying it lightly, you guys. I understand what it's like to be at, and there's safety and it's complicated. But if you want to do this sport, when you sign your entry form, you are telling all the other competitors there that you have control over your dog. So if you can't train a recall on your own, the next time you go to your agility lesson, tell your instructor you would rather work on a recall. And I'm not talking about a recall that ends up with the dog's nose at the ground coming to you with "I'd rather be dead" written all over his face. I'm talking about a fast, happy recall. And it's not easy to get depending on the breed you chose. You chose that breed. So now some of you, if you've got Zoomies in your life, you may have some questions about Zoomies and you can hold them for a little bit. Somebody says that I'm talking to them. So dead people, I want to talk about. A friend of mine had a dog that was a spook. We couldn't always tell. Sometimes we could tell. And would be in the middle of a run and freeze. And in the day she said, I think it was dead people, I said, oh my gosh, that's exactly what he looks like. He had a bit of instability in his temperament. It was not a training issue. And I hope tonight, if I can do one thing, I can get you guys looking at if you're dealing with a training issue, a handling issue, or a temperament issue. So
That's true.
if you've chosen to work a dog with a temperament issue, lots of people do. It's a matter, and I've written about getting the most out of the dog you have and the responsibility of training and or competing with a dog that doesn't have the ideal temperament for that job description. You know what? It's not for everybody. You're allowed to be the competitor that you want to be, but you can't be a competitor that's disappointed in a dog that has a faulty temperament. If you're going to go there, and I help people with this stuff all the time, I can help people come to a place, a frame of mind in themselves of accepting that dog and its abilities versus get another dog. And I just want you to know that the husbands don't actually move out. I am a single woman. Most people don't want to take marriage advice from me for very obvious reasons. But I've had many, 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 many students, when we've decided to get another dog, the student and I say their person in their house won't like it. And I give them a little game plan. That's almost a joke. So the spookiness, the sensitivity to sound, sight, or smell is something that we can talk about in detail here today. And maybe I can help you decide if agility is the right thing for this little dog or not. There's other sports, there's other things to do, and there's letting the dog. You guys, let me explain. Let me give you an example here. I have an outstanding, amazing dream dog right now. He is my masterpiece. That sucker is well trained and he is a pleasure to run, and he is world team material. And I have been on world team, and he has sound sensitivities and I can't fly him. So that's just off the plate. It's just off the table because his temperament will not permit me to do what I want to do with his career. That's the thing about dogs. Maybe Forrest Gump should have said, dogs are like a box of chocolate. You're never going to know what you get. But they're real issues. So over arousal is a 3-hour webinar. And right now, I am so happy that our sport is offering so much information on that very, very difficult subject. The problem is I've got people coming to me with arousal issues that are simply dogs that have no boundaries in their life. The dogs just haven't been taught appropriate behavior. And then they're also not getting enough exercise. So this is a real sticky wicket for a lot of people because they've got a dog that has arousal issues and they can't get the dog out. And then the dog gets worse because they can't get it out. And it's a very complicated, difficult place. And I have dealt with it on many occasions. And again, it goes back to Do you have control over the dog or not? So I'm talking about dogs that lunge and bark and carry on and act like they do not have a brain. And I've had clients, many of them, come to me and tell me that their dog can't think. What their dog has done, again, you guys, I'm talking about a stable dog. I am not talking about, I have had people come to me who have unstable dogs that react very, very, very badly. I did in-home consultations for years on dangerous, unstable dogs. I'm talking about dogs who have practiced an unwanted behavior and convinced their owner that they weren't able to think at that level of arousal. And there is some information that says that the way to those dogs' brains is to keep them under arousal, under threshold. I don't know about you, but if you're living with a dog that has threshold issues, that is one hell of a tall order. Yes, you have to understand threshold. And yes, putting that dog over threshold is not going to do you any good. But you also have to have a system of communication that is going to have a snowball's chance in hell of reaching that dog when he's over threshold, because life is full of corners. You don't know what's coming around the corner every second. So having a system of communication where you can tell a dog when he's on the right track and when he's on the wrong track, and you can stop a dog. I'm talking about a dog that understands the word no. And then teaching that dog that you do have ears, and your ears can work when you're over aroused. A lot of these dogs don't believe they can. They think they can't, and they've been taught that they can't. And I have met only a few dogs that really and truly, I've seen a lot of people yelling at dogs, and the dog is over threshold and they can't get through. I do think that there has to be a mechanism where you can get through to the dog. And I just, on Facebook pretty soon here, I filmed a little short thing. I have a Jack Russell Staffy Bull Border Collie mix. You think he gets over aroused? Yes, he does. It's his favorite thing in the whole world. So my job is to balance his arousal, know what puts him over the edge, but my job isn't to avoid everything that he goes, I'll be overexcited about the rake today. How about the broom tomorrow? How about those dogs across the street? I mean, if I let him grow his list, it would never end. So I've had to teach him how to earth to quiz, Sandy calling quiz. I have had to teach him that the things on his side of his head called ears actually can work. Again, this is the breed I chose. I paid a lot of money for that dog. But I've had to accept him, and my job, as far as I see it, is to teach him how to be responsive when he is aroused. My job is to not constantly keep him under arousal. No, I'm not going to flood him. No, I'm not going to be stupid about asking him to respond to commands he doesn't know well when he's aroused. Andy, I think you're unmuted. And then the solicitous dog, that's Quizzleberry too. We could call that a form of arousal for sure. And again, that's about having basic obedience commands, well trained and worked on and chipped away, and help and teach and help and teach. I believe you can do this, friend. I know it's hard. I know it's hard, but I am your teacher and I will hang in there forever to help you understand that you gotta hear me and you gotta respond. So my job is to make the response to the cue easy in situations where the dog isn't aroused, and then build up the situations slowly but surely. And always know the situations where my dog isn't going to be able to respond yet. Yet. The problem in our sport is it is too much fun. And we want to train agility instead of responses to basic commands in parks, in the woods, at the swimming pool, at the lake. And if you said to me, many years ago, I did an in-home consultation, really nice older couple with a standard poodle. You'll have to forgive me if you've heard this before. It's short. And the standard, I went into their home and I sat down on the couch, and the standard poodle was like an orangutan. I mean, that sucker was swinging from the happy. I mean, no problem, but he was literally jumping on the end of the couch and grabbing the drape and swinging from it to land in the chair. I had never seen a more ill-mannered beast in my life. And they're saying, well, we want him to, and they're talking normal while this dog is knocking into them, just, boomeranging off of them and running around the Zoomies around the coffee table. And my mouth is on my chin. And I'm like, they're telling me they want the dog to do stays and just, we just need the dog to come at the park, come when it's called. And I'm like, what about all this? Like, what about the Tarzan banging? And they're like, we don't mind that. That's okay. We just need him to come when we call him and lie down when we tell him. And I'm like, this is like, Christine, you're not muted. This is, that's like saying to your teenager, I don't care if you stay out all night, use drugs, get the local girl pregnant. I just need you to go to college and be a Rhodes Scholar. I don't think you can get there from here. So this is, I worked with a lovely woman today with her dog, and we actually filmed the whole thing, and I'm hoping to make it available at some point because it was about that. We can't get there from here. I'm going to address a couple of things in the chat. So if you're uncomfortable talking to me live, what do you mean by sound problems? I think I meant sound sensitivity. Dogs that are sound sensitive are often wind sensitive, and they just spook. Thunderstorms are the classic, and then it goes on from there, classic sound sensitivity. And sound sensitivity can be a very, very mild thing that you might not even be aware of, or it can be a very serious thing. So let's talk about ring stress. Shuts down a bit, slow at the start line, watches people from the ring, doesn't run full speed. So ring stress is one of my favorite topics. And what I want to know about those dogs is, how responsive are they to you in front of the grocery store? So when you go in front of Lowe's or Safeway, is that dog comfortable enough to tug or do a little mini fetch or do some tricks? Can he roll over, shake a paw, and heel with you? So is it just agility specific ring, how fast are your recalls in real life? So dogs coming slow off the start line, I've had a lot of clients with that problem. It is one problem that I can honestly say I have never personally but I cultivate it early and I guard it. And what I mean by guard it is I build value in it throughout the dog's career. So the first time in practice, my dog comes a little pokey off the start line. And I do a thing called recall to hand and recalls to planted reinforcement. So the coming off the start line fast is a manufactured thing trained. A lot of dogs that come off the start line slow because they're stressed are often stressed. This is just a common thing, you guys. When I have this, when people come to me with this problem, I say to them, when you're out hiking or you're out at the park, how far are the lead outs that you're doing? Because when I'm hiking with my dogs, I'm doing lead outs all the time. I let them race and I call up to heel, or I let them go into a swimming hole or something. And they usually say they don't do giant lead outs. So some of those dogs, when the handler leads out in the ring, the dog actually hasn't experienced that much distance between them and the dog as often as needed. Now there's my little loophole, because somebody could say, well, I do that all the time. And then I would say 3 times a week. Oh yeah. 5 times a week. I think so. 12 times a week. No. Well, then try that. Try getting that dog used to that distance between the two of you, and then double it up at home, double it up at training class. So the things that, and then, and a lot of times the tiny dogs, you guys, honestly, all a tiny dog has to have happen to them is be chased once or twice. And their handler leads out at the agility ring, and they're like, there are dogs all around this ring. And I have no way to know if they're going to chase me or not. And that's an insecurity. And building that dog, building up confidence on a lead out takes going to matches, go and do a good old fashioned obedience class, not out of sight stays. If you have questions about that, you can email me. But just building up that confidence of the longer lead out. And then in the meantime, jackpotting every fast lead out you get. But you would only need to do that for the dog's entire career. 10 years. And then I've had, and then having people sit around the ring and letting the dog go visit them, having them not interact with the dog, calling them off. So that, you know, we've done that in the classes a lot, have people around the ring. I even have a woman that spent the money to buy a couple of mannequins and had them sit around. I thought that's not going to work. It did. The dog really did think that the mannequins, in fact, her border collie went and dropped the ball at the mannequin's feet for about an hour and a half. So mine is very well behaved in public and will tug, etc. Very good recalls in open spaces, lots and lots of wide open space with stays and recalls and around other dogs and people in public. So Carrie, is your dog nervous when you first arrive at the trial site? You can come on, you can come aboard with your mic if you like.
Okay, so, and I'll put my video on too, because I can talk now.
Thanks.
Hi. I'm just bad at these Zoom cameras, but anyway, this is Kai, who's going on 5, who I've been competing with for a while. She's got tons of skills, tons of potential, but it's like the moment we go into the ring, I can see her ears go down and she'll start looking around. Haven't quite been able to overcome that. Now, sometimes she's not as bad as others. We've had a lot of wins, you know, at the local level anyway, and a little bit at regionals. But no, when we get to the most trial sites, if it's somewhere she knows, she's pulling me like to the areas where we can play off leash. She's happy to be there. She's engaging with me. She will tug with me up to like the gate, but then she knows that the toy is going to go away. And then
Mhm.
when it goes away, I see her change right then. Her demeanor, she's like, uh-oh, we're gonna go in the ring. I'm not gonna get my reward until some future date. Um, that kind of thing. She usually will continue to take food from me up until the moment we go in. She is a slightly more food motivated, at least at times. So yeah, I've tried so many things with her and different ways of setting her up on the start line, having her play with me even right before I set her up once we're in the ring to keep her energy up and focused on me. And that does help somewhat, but it's still been very inconsistent.
What percentage of time do you have that when you step into the ring? Is it 50%, 80%, 5%?
Oh boy. And to say, I also want to back up and say it sometimes happens, and I don't go to class very often, but if I'm at a class, because I'm distance away from people, sometimes she will act the same there. And I don't know if it's because of the other people pressure or I'm feeling stressed and she's feeding off me if I'm in front of other
Well,
people.
are you?
There could be. I think my performance is a little different when I'm versus training alone.
What kind of relationship do you have at home?
Oh, I would say very good. We play a lot, but I have, 4 dogs now, so I have to divide between them. But
Does she
she gets,
seek your attention to be close to you, to snuggle up to you?
yes, she does quite a bit, unless she also has a different little border collie behavior and she obsesses on my cats. And she will just stay endlessly at the cats. She doesn't hurt them, although she just,
But
yeah,
sometimes she'll come in. I have a border collie that never solicits me unless I'm on the agility field with a ball. Like he would never just like come up and say, I love you, mommy. It's heartbreaking, but it's the truth.
oh
So
no, she's a lover. She
she's a
just
lover. And so
snuggles
you
up.
feel like you have a really special connection to her?
Yeah, I think we're close. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
I'm
I
gonna,
think she
I'm gonna,
like she wants to play with me. She wants to do things with me.
when you go into the ring, what percentage of time or class do you really work hard to animate her?
I try to animate her all the time. Like before it's my turn, I'll get her out and take her to a little separate area if I need to, wherever it is for a class where I won't
Okay,
just.
but once you step in the ring or once you see the dog that isn't the dog you want, how hard do you work to change her mind?
Uh, I, it's hard to say because I don't know exactly what you're asking, but I will, if it's not in a trial and if it's at class, I will usually try to re-engage her and play because I don't have to take the run. I'll try to get her back that way and have her do some spins, some higher energy arousal type games, which she likes. And then she's more eager to stay focused on me instead of worrying about what else might be going on in the area or making excuses like, oh, someone's smiling at me. I'm going to smile back and look at them. Or I'm going to go say hi to the instructor because they're right there and they're watching me. And it's less.
So when she goes to the instructor and you call her back, is she happy to come back?
Not always. Sometimes
Okay.
I have a little bit to get her back. If I don't have a toy on me, for example,
Okay.
if it's in, I usually
When
have a
she
toy.
when she comes back on the recall, what happens next? Do you put her to work? If she comes back fast, do you just like give her some obstacles to do, or do you mix it up on what you do?
That's hard to say because it's been a little while since I've had the opportunity to try.
You're not
I
going to
think
class every week? Okay,
I'm
Carrie,
for
let me
but
drive here for a minute.
please.
And because I want to take other questions and we're getting close on time, I'm going to give you some stuff to think about.
Okay, great.
So I have found, for many, many years, criticized people whose dogs wouldn't perform in the ring. And we came up, all us trainers started saying, well, they don't have a relationship. There's a relationship broken. And what I have found, and that's why I asked you those questions, is some of the dogs that are sensitive and have extraordinary relationships with their handlers can't handle the competition ring because their person changes.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like stepping into the looking glass and it's like, this isn't the mama that's at
Right.
home with me. This is
Yeah.
a different mama. And I think I should worry about her.
Uh-huh.
And the other thing that happens with a dog that's a little bit worried is when we try to say, Don't get me wrong. I am all into brainwashing dogs. I am all into, you don't have to feel that way. I'm all into, here's a glass of wine. Let's go to a movie. Forget your troubles. I am all into that. But if my invitation into, would you rather play than be what you're being right now? When they say, I ain't buying it, I'm uncomfortable. And no, I'm uncomfortable. Like your girlfriend that says, I don't want to go to the movies. I just want to cry. So I actually have started, and if you'd have told me I was going to do this 10 years ago, I would have just said, you can't. I've actually praised those dogs. Good dog. Good job. Look at you. I'll get down on one knee and scratch them behind the ear and say, you're good. And if this is all you got, it's good enough for me. It's good enough for me if this is all you've got for me. And I let them be okay. Because I don't have any other options. Because it's, at that point, it's this bond trust issue, really. And so, Carrie, I'm going to plant those seeds.
Okay.
If you'd have told me 10 years ago that I would tell somebody that had a dog that looked uncomfortable to tell them they're good. But when you're dealing with emotions, it's not training.
Right.
It's emotional. It's not, you're doing it wrong. So you're doing it wrong is a response to a cue. So when those dogs are expressing their emotions and we're saying you're doing it wrong, they don't get it. It does not compute. Okay, another question for me. Somebody want to come on? We've got 10 minutes. Cindy?
Did you talk about sniffing?
Sniffing, yep. So is it the happy fast sniffing or the slow, I'd rather not be here?
You know, what I've observed is somewhere in between. I mean, it's definitely progressive, nose to the ground, and they're covering ground, so they're definitely actively sniffing. But it appears to me to be a no thanks, I don't want to work with you. It's not that that is more attractive. It's that I'm kind of checked out.
Do you get that when you're out and about in real life?
Nope.
Your responses are wonderful when you're in real life?
Much better. I rarely get sniffing like that. It's in a training situation.
Okay. Is your best guess that it's displacement behavior?
Yeah.
Okay. So when dogs don't want to be there anymore, 9 times out of 10, oh my gosh, there's exceptions. 9 times out of 10, it's because, and you don't get to pick. I don't mean you specifically, Cindy. I mean, all you people do not get to say what's easy or hard for the dog. But 9 times out of 10, that nose goes to the ground. The dog is saying to you, this is too hard for me right now. And one of the things about our sport is we are teaching extremely difficult handling maneuvers on dogs that are not ready for it. And if your dog, you guys, you had to know what your dog loves about the sport. And the other things that happen is the compiling of cues and the rushing. You guys, I just gave you your money's worth. If your dog is saying, I don't want to be here, and you start rushing with, do this, do that, come on. If you pile on, I want you to feel different. Now, again, college try is okay. If you can say, so what I like to do when a dog is sniffing is I interrupt them. And that's usually like, I do a raspberry goose. I got your butt. And as soon as they go pick their nose up, I can reward that. And then I've invited them into a game. And if they're like, you don't get it. I said this was hard. And I'm too smart to have you just sweep it under the carpet with your stupid ball game. We're not talking about a Labrador, because a Labrador go, cool, I'll do anything you want. So I slow it all down. And I've got several different ways, you guys, and again, maybe this should have been a 2-hour deal. So one of the ways that I will do is I'll watch the dog pick his nose up Yes, pay, nose off the ground. And then see, is that nose going to go right back down? So I can shape or make it about just keep your nose up and you'll get reinforced. But the timing is difficult and it's very easy to teach a dog. I get it. I get a cookie if I pick my nose up the ground. The only way to pick my nose off the ground is to put it back down. So you have to watch for that. And again, it depends. So you guys, this is a really good example. My dog Tuxedo, if I am hiking with him and he hears a motorcycle backfire, he will flatten his ears and tuck his tail and start to run in a way that you would be sure he was going to end up in Nebraska. He is 1000% panicked. You would assume that no one could get through to an animal that over the top. And I can say to him, want a piney? That's a pine cone in our world. Want a piney? And he'll go, oh yeah. He completely forgets whatever it was. I mean, his ears go up. Now, if that motorcycle continued to backfire, that wouldn't be the thing. So again, investigating how deep rooted is that sniff and how much has it been rehearsed? And can you, with a couple of cookies, trick him into, but here's what people do. The dog says, this is too hard, and they glue their nose to the ground. And the owner says, if you pick up your nose, I'll feed you. And the dog goes, really? You will? And the owner says, sure, all you got to do is pick up your nose. And the dog picks up their nose and they get the cookie. And the dog goes, maybe this is okay. Maybe I'm in. And then the handler wants to do 4 threadles to a backside. And the dog goes, I knew it. I knew this was a trick. I told you it was hard and you didn't listen. And I'm going to put my nose back down and it's not coming up again. So what I do is I get that nose off the ground and I'll tease him a little bit. There are cookies available. How about a tunnel? Yay, there's your cookie. How about another tunnel? Oh, look at how smart you are. And inside you're going, really? I got to do this, dog? I mean, it doesn't matter what you're thinking, but you can say, if this is too hard, I'll make it easier. And I cannot tell you the number of people who have said to me, it's not too hard. Well, yes, it is. No, it isn't. He knows how to weave. He knows how to weave. Okay. He knows how to weave, but maybe he doesn't know how to do a 4-jump lead out, then weave to, do a threadle to a weave. It's compounding. You guys, it's sort of like when we're asking these dogs to do agility, it is so many elaborate behaviors. And then we pile them. Have you ever taken a test on a single subject? Science. You took a science test and you got through it. And then the next day you took your math test. But have you ever taken a test that was like 3 questions of science, history, and it's all mixed up? And that would be I wouldn't be able to do it. That would be a nightmare for me. When we're mixing, and then in agility, it's like, look at me, don't miss a cue. Okay, now ignore me and do an independent poll. And don't miss a cue, look at me, don't look at me, look at me, don't look at me. So when dogs are getting food for having fun and doing easy things, this is why people are so successful with tricks, because it's easy. And the dogs like to do it. And that's why your dog is successful out in the real world, because it's one thing. It's one thing, they get to be successful and then it's over. The other thing I see people do when they start to rush, kiss of death in dog training, rushing. The next time your dog makes a mistake, I want you to notice, it's real hard in the ring, you guys. Oh my God. It is so hard. If you feel yourself rushing, can you imagine if you were being trained for a job and you were trying to learn something or do a hard test or whatever, and you got somebody going, come on, come on, come on, anything that you're trying to figure out if you're rushed, it's too hard. It's a turnoff. It is a bona fide turnoff. So take it all down. Say to the dog, can we meet here in the middle? Carrie saying, where's my girl? The phrases that you use at home. Where's my dog? The things you do at home that make their tail wag. That mama's voice, that scratch behind the ear. Come here, pal. Let's be how we are when you're comfortable. Now that we're here, do you want to do something simple? And that's why so many people have these dogs at the start line that'll do the tricks and do the tugging, and then they step in the ring. And like Carrie said, there's no more of that. But you actually can get down on one knee and say to the world, you know what? Me and my buddy here got to connect because she's scared. And thank you very much. The dogs have to believe us. If they don't believe us, if you say to them, if you get in over your head, I'll fix it. I'll slow down. I won't rush you. I won't rush you. I'll give you something simple and I'll give you a reward for doing it. And then we'll see where your brain is and if we can get a little bit more. But you can't tell the dog that and say, sorry, 3 more threadles. I'll have people reconnect with the dog, give them something easy. And then it's almost like, and I understand where you're coming from. You spent the money, you got up at 4, you drove, you're tired of it. I get it. I've been there. But you can't say, if you relax, I'll make it easy and I'll reward your efforts. And then every time you make it hard again. You have to end there. You have to keep your promise. And you have to know what your promise is. So if you say, listen, pal, I'm going to stop. I'm going to rub your ears. I'm going to remind you that I love you. I'm going to remind you that we got this connection. And then I'm going to ask a little bit of you. And the dog goes, I'm in. I'm all in. And they get 3 obstacles and they don't want to stop and pay. So many students, and I'm like, you said if they bought in, you would pay. Now you're lying. So you do have to have some idea if you're asking for one simple thing, 2 simple things. And I've had students in the most high-end classes with dogs, and those students, they want to do that hard sequence. They want to do those 4 backsides to the throttle because they know their dog can. And I know their dog can on another day and another circumstance. But what they can't do is get the dog to run fast whenever they want without their nose going to the ground. So if you want your dog to run fast whenever you want, the first sign of I'm starting to feel like this is too hard, you don't get to say, no, it isn't. You did it yesterday. You say, okay, let's do something fun and easy. And I've had students at the top that would have these dogs overcomplicated thinkers, and it would be okay. We're doing big happy circles. Greg Darrett used to end every seminar with big happy circles. Every dog got to just run a big circle and let its hair down and do what they love, what we were supposed to be doing with the sport in the first place. It's just now 7. I'm happy to stay on. If anybody has a babysitter and has to nick off, I'll understand. But if you've got, I could take another question. And please remember, if you liked this, you can either pay or give me some thumbs up on social media, and you're always welcome back. So we're officially kind of closing. I'm going to keep the recording going. And if anybody has a comment or a question, you're free to speak up.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So again, I'm pretty new at this. So if your dog is kind of having questions and you're working through something, is it okay to not ask for speed? Like if you're working on something, is it okay if the dog does it slowly, even if if it doesn't have the speed that you want?
That's a beautiful question. That is a beautiful, beautiful question. There are some behaviors that if you're back chaining to produce speed, everything in dog training can backfire. I just want you guys to know that. So if it's a behavior that you want fast, and you endlessly tell the dog speed doesn't matter, you will have a problem. But there are lots of things that you guys, my self-fixing on two off, can be painfully slow in the beginning. But I love watching a dog think. And like with sniffing, like I call myself the cookie machine. That's who I am to some of my dogs. So sometimes when they disconnect, and actually, you guys, honestly, with my current dogs, I don't have a disconnection problem. Quilly Bear used to disconnect when she was young in the show environment by going slower. That was her disconnect. But I work a lot of my students' dogs. And, sometimes I'll play the cookie machine is broken, and I'll wait to see, is this dog even going to notice that I'm still on the planet? And then I'll reward them saying, oh, I'm not finding any cookies on the ground, because that's sometimes what sniffing is. And then I'll reward it. So to answer your question simply, yes. But I am really aware of at what point this dog is starting to determine that this behavior is something that we do slow, or that speed doesn't matter, if speed does indeed matter. And anything that I can back chain with speed being part of it, I do.
Okay.
I hope that answered the question. Anything else? Did anybody get any useful information?
Sandy,
Yeah.
it's Suzanne. I got in late. I had my cap lock on,
Uh-huh.
and I guess it needs to be all lowercase.
Okay.
So anyway, I did appreciate, because this is kind of the issue that I was dealing with today. So appreciating everybody else, so many people that are here with similar issues.
Yeah, it's, my heart goes out to anybody. And the main thing I want you to know is I feel so bad for the people I've criticized about their relationship with their dog when their dog was intimidated by the ring environment. Because I've known some people that I've been in their homes, and I've seen what beautiful, wonderful relationships they have with their dogs. And the sensitivity in the relationship was actually the problem, because the handler had so much nerves in the ring, and the support that the dog was used to in other places for behaviors couldn't be given in the ring, partly because you're at the trial. And it was a very natural thing. The dog flat out didn't know who that person, like, that's not my person that I'm respond to so genuinely. And I feel for folks that have problems, and I love to problem solve this stuff, but you can't, sometimes, like I said, depending on how deep rooted the issue is, you can con them. I don't use a ball to distract a dog or food to distract a dog. I'll go in and interrupt them first. And I'm smiling the whole time, because if I'm and then I have to look at, do I have a leave it command? Do I have a recall that my dog thoroughly enjoys all the time? And when it slips, maintenance. I'll go back and plug those holes as soon as I see that my recall's getting a little slower, or my response to this is a little slower. I'll go fine tune. I'm always fine tuning the weak link. You good?
Good, thank you.
Good. Thanks for coming, you guys. Let your friends know we're here on Wednesdays. There's one Wednesday in February I will send out where I'm doing my Zoom for Feet First. So there's a Feet First coming up. Can I tell you? It's the 17th or the 24th. It's the 24th of February. If you want to talk to me on that Wednesday night, you'll have to sign up for Feet First through Clean Run. And that's a good, cheap program. Take care, everybody. Bye.